Ladies love the skin.
Ow.
Bring it a little bit closer. The good skin, that is. That's why having a proper skincare routine is very important, and you need to feel the Teej. The process is so easy, just 4 steps. You got your daily face wash. That's going to clean your face up nice and right. You got your exfoliator scrub. That's going to open up your pores. You got your AM moisturizer with the SPM 20, which is going to protect you from the sun. You also got your PM moisturizer, which is going to make sure your skin is protected throughout the night. Teej has tons of reviews from dedicated customers across the world. I know I said a lot, but it's okay, because guess what? It comes with an instruction card to explain to you in detail what to do morning and night. And because Teej is a sponsor, they're offering my family 30% off along with a free gift. Just click that link that's in the description and feel the Teej.
Maintaining your beard isn't just style, it's self-respect. A well-groomed beard boosts confidence and leaves a lasting impression. Elevate your look. Embrace the importance of beard care today. What's going on, family? Welcome to Live with Lapeef. I know it's a short notice show, man, but I wanted to go ahead and bring you guys a special show right now before we do our live show. So this is the pre-show, and I have a couple of lovely ladies with me, and they are from the Keep It Cute show. We have Sabrina. She'll be to your right there. And then we have Dakia, right? Dakia?
Yeah, Dakia.
Yes, to my left, my apologies. And they are from the Keep It Cute show. So I wanted to just have a discussion with you ladies. Kind of want to open it up with a few questions, and then we'll go ahead and get into this topic. I think it's very important to have different perspectives here on the network. And so I appreciate you guys for taking time out your day to come up here.
Thank you for having us.
No problem. So you guys,
Thank you.
You want to tell a little bit about it?
I didn't hear that last part, so sorry.
I was just asking if you guys have wanted to introduce your show, just kind of give a little bit of background about yourselves and what it is that you guys have going on.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. Well, first off, JR, thank you so much for having us. Excited to connect. Always want to support, our podcast community out there, especially as newbies. And so we recently launched a podcast called The Keep It Cute Show. It really is what I like to call some good, fun girl talk, where we talk about everything under the sun, from the boardroom to the bedroom to pop culture. And it really just stems from Dakia and I just having some really just heartfelt, but also funny conversations, and wanting to bring those conversations to other women, other people just out there who we feel like could really relate, and just wanting to provide some positive and playful conversations to the world.
Absolutely. Just to kind of echo what Sabrina said, she and I met on Ready to Love Potomac. We were both on the Potomac season of Ready to Love on the OWN network, and we became fast friends. And those conversations that we had were just a really good time. So we had this idea to start this podcast, and we are in episode 9 is airing tonight. So we're newbies, so we're excited to kind of have a conversation with you. I know you've been doing this for quite some time, and that's us. That's Sabrina and Dakia.
Okay, well, that was a good presentation, man. I didn't know you guys was on Ready to Love on network, man. So you guys came together, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. All right, so just a little bit of background. I know, Dakia, you're married, and Sabrina, you are engaged. I know some of the people may be watching, may want to know a little bit about you guys' background when you enter these conversations. I do want to open it up a little bit. I like to do an icebreaker. So one of the icebreakers that I'm going to do, it's just like a few questions that's kind of floating around in the podcast space. One of the things that was, I think came at the right time and a lot of people started to podcast after the late great Kevin Samuels was doing his thing. So, just your thoughts. We had a show last week where a woman said that she thought that Kevin Samuels was a terror uh, for the Black community. She said that his verbiage was to kind of tear people down and to divide. So, just a quick question: how do you guys feel about Kevin Samuels? Has he had an impact, or has he been a burden, so to speak, when it comes to these relationship talks? You unmute just so you know.
Yeah, I didn't say I can't say that I have strong opinions about him on in general. I will say that I feel that he can be highly controversial, but I think that that's what he aims to do, right? And so one of the things that you think about when you think about media, marketing, those types of things, people aim to be sensational. And so I feel like that's his niche. That's what he's aiming to do. He does it well. And for the people who can relate to him, they're going to tune in. And for the people who want to get upset by him, they're going to tune in. And for the people who could care less, they're not. So I don't know. I don't really have strong opinions about him one way or the other.
All right, what about you, Dakia?
For me, I'll say that nobody is ever 100% right and nobody's ever 100% wrong. So I'll preface my statement with that. But from that, like Sabrina said, I think that his methods were controversial. I think that there were, I'm gonna just be frank, I'm not a fan. I think that there were a lot of things that were said to sensationalize things, but I will say that under it all, there are nuggets that I think people can take away from it that were positive and true. But I think the presentation, I think that some of the messaging, some of the theories are not something that I subscribe to, but to each their own.
Okay. Have you actually watched the entire show, or is it just based off the clips?
Your show or Kevin
No,
Samuels' show?
Kevin Samuels.
No, I don't care to watch a show. No.
I haven't. And that's why I said I don't really have strong opinions about it because I haven't really taken the time to sit down and watch from start to finish, you know?
Yeah. Typically, when I'm not the type of person that kind of listens to too much. I'm not the advice column kind of person, or the I don't watch podcasts or listen to podcasts or watch shows that are giving advice. I don't think that that just is something that I'm interested in. I like conversations, I like discussions, but the self-help and advice thing is just not something that I'm drawn to.
I just want to get you guys' take. I mean, I do understand the entertainment aspect of it, and I think that that was something that he did add to it, because there's the entertainment aspect of it. You got to kind of like liven it up a little bit. But I think a lot of times when we see these clips, they're taken out of context, and usually there's some support on the front end or maybe the back of that statement or that clip. So anybody that's watching, I just always just suggest just listen to its entirety. It's okay to have an opinion, and it's cool, but just take a listen. You'll be surprised how many people's statements were taken out of context or rearranged to kind of fit.
We have experience in that. Just from being on the show, we know how they can take a soundbite and just amplify that soundbite without the context around it. So I understand it. I think we understand how that can take place. But I take it from your comment that you are a fan.
Am I a fan?
Yeah.
I can never really say I'm a fan of anybody. I've never been the person to really fan out over anyone.
You called him late great. You said the late great.
I mean, to each his own. Well, Kevin Samuels did appear on the show a few times, so I was able to hear a lot of his dialogue, not just from a clip. I have watched some shows as well whenever I had time, so I understood what it is that he was ultimately trying to do, and just being in a space of creating content, I do understand the entertainment aspect of it. So a lot of things is for shock value to kind of lure people in. You got to take it how some people attention spans or what they draw to usually is controversial things. So, but there's also like a message that may not be liked by all, but I do understand it. So again, I just wouldn't say that I'm a fan. I do like some of the things that he's speaking, just like anybody else that says some good thing. I just take what I need from it, and I'm either going to apply it to my life or not. So if it's some good stuff and it seems like it makes logical sense, then that's something that I may try to use up on my day-to-day communication or relationships.
Yeah, I feel that. That makes sense. And like the Kia said, no one's ever completely right or completely wrong. There's always like nuggets of truth or things you could take away, regardless. So I feel that. That was a hell of an icebreaker.
Right. That was the icebreaker.
I just like to just get people's opinion because, I mean, some people don't even know who he is. You know, I know he was pretty big with us, but if you look at some of the younger audience, they never really seen him, or people, maybe people that's just now tuning in, they have no clue who he is. So it's interesting just to get you guys' take, because I know at least in a relationship, in the relationship world, when it comes to media, he was making a lot of noise. And then I just had one more other question too. Like, what do you guys stand on as far as like with 50-50? Are you guys for it, or do you think the man is supposed to pay majority of the things? I just wanted to get you guys' opinion on it.
You talking about like once you're married, just out the gate from the first date?
No.
Like, what are we talking about?
Not out the gate, but once you're married.
Oh, once you're married. I'm open to 50-50. I've been in relationships. I've been married before, JR. We didn't really get into my relationship history, but I've been married before. And, it was definitely at times when that person was contributing more because they were just the breadwinner, but it was always a team effort. So I'm never going to say, oh, a man has to pay for everything. That's not my personal belief. I believe in teamwork and working together. And I feel like I want to have my queendom. I want him to have his kingdom. And then together we have an empire. That's my belief. You know what I mean? And when you're both contributing in that way, it may not be 50-50. The exact percentage is really irrelevant to me. What's important to me is that person is contributing in a meaningful way towards our goals. And that could be monetary or it could be in another way. And then I'm doing the same thing. So I'm open to 50-50. I'm open to 30-70. I'm open to anything really, so long as we're pursuing our goals as a team.
Yeah, and I would agree with her. I don't think that there's one method that's tried and true for every couple. I don't think that anybody should generalize and say everything should be 50-50 or every relationship should be, the man paying for everything. I think that each couple needs to do what works for them. I know for me and my husband, we both do what works for us, and for us, we have our separate accounts and we have our joint accounts. We put in percentages and we govern our household accordingly from there. I don't think there has to be I have to do everything. I'm not the type to subscribe to traditional gender roles in general. So having to say that, my husband has to pay for everything and I have to pay for nothing is not something that I need or believe in. I also don't think that it needs to be defined as a 50-50 because sometimes no relationship is ever 50-50 in finances, in effort, in love, and whatever you're bringing to the table in relationships and marriages in general. So there's going to be sometimes when I'm at 80 and he's at 20. There's going to be sometimes when he's at 70 and I'm down to 30. It's how much can this person bring to the marriage, whether it's finances, whether it's effort, love, attention, support, whatever it is, how much can this person do in this moment? And those roles and percentages change depending on the way life goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not knocking anybody who does believe that the man should pay for everything. Once again, whatever works for you and yours over there, you guys have to agree to it. Because I do know women who feel like that. And I know a lot of men who feel like that too. Like, no, I'm the man, I'm going to pay for everything. And that's just been ingrained in them. So I know I've heard it from both perspectives. So, and I just hope that those people find each other.
All right. Dakia, I was listening to you. You said you guys have separate accounts. Do you believe in the whole one pot? Do you believe in that all money should come together?
Well, we don't. We don't have one pot, but we are one family. So even if we have separate accounts and a joint account for households, if there's ever a time that we have to adjust. That I don't have a problem with that. I believe in flexibility in life and love. So one pot, we are one. We are one person, at the same time. But we also got married later in life, and he and I both have our individual businesses. He has his business, I have my business. So it's not just a traditional, he's the breadwinner and I come home and take care of the house. That's not our relationship and our dynamic. What works for us is that we have our separate accounts and then we have our joint family account.
All right, I like that. How do you guys feel about prenups? Is that something that you guys think is necessary? Or do you believe that once you're married that it shouldn't be no prenups involved at all?
I don't have an issue with prenups. I'm a woman that has seen a lot of success in life, in business, in my careers. We did not do a prenup. We discussed it and talked about it. We did not do that, not because we didn't want to. We just got busy with work and life and didn't end up getting it done before we got married. But I think that it's not just to say that, if you get a prenup that, you're planning for the demise of the marriage. I think that when you get to a certain stage in life, sometimes you just have to make sure that, I don't know. I think that it's protecting you and your partner. I know that when, heaven forbid, if divorce happens, sometimes people can show different sides of them, and the person that you married might not be the person that shows up in the courtroom. So I think that prenups, if you do it, if you don't do it, I think, again, I'm a live and let live type of person. If it works for you, go for it. My husband and I didn't do it. We planned on doing it, didn't have time to do it. But I think that it works for, it's not needed for everybody, and not saying that all rich people need it, and not saying that poor people don't need it. I think that if you have anything that you bring to the table and you want to protect yourself, whether it's you protecting your car or your dog, you brought a dog into the marriage and, now it's a family dog, or whether you have property or businesses. I think that it depends. If you had children beforehand, I think that the prenup could be of assistance when needed. I don't think it's required, but again, live and let live. JR, I'm the the free spirit. Like I don't judge or put any stipulations on anybody's life, love, relationships, careers. What works for you works for you.
All right, I like that. I do have another question. So, what is one of the biggest reasons as to why relationships and marriages are failing, in your opinion?
I think there's, it could be countless reasons why marriages fail. I think that society is different than the society that our parents and our grandparents came up in. I think that, back in the day in the 50s and 60s, relationships and marriages stood the test of time because of the way society, the way media, there are a lot of different things were. I don't think that you can put the same expectations on marriage today as you can in the 1960s, and just the same way you couldn't put the same expectations of marriage in 1960 as you did in 1892. I think that as times change, relationships and dynamics change. I think that marriages today could be ending because of countless different reasons. Maybe it's social media. Maybe it's they came into the marriage with different expectations. Maybe they didn't, realize that they were not as compatible as they thought they were, or maybe you just grew apart, and that's okay too.
But to that point, JR, I actually read recently that divorce rates are down.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's.
I think that's definitely a misconception. People think that divorce rates are going up, but the stats say that divorce rates today are lower than they have been in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You mentioned growing apart, and that's okay. Can you elaborate on that? Why you think it's okay to grow apart once you're married?
The person that I am today is not the person I was 10 years ago. I think that people grow apart, people change, and we hope that as we grow and change that we can still make that work. I think that sometimes there could be aspects where that growth takes you so far apart that you are no longer aligned and it can't be bridged. As a married couple and as a husband and wife, I do believe that you need to work your hardest to bridge that gap, and whether you're growing left or right, to make sure that you guys are doing the work to stay committed and honor that vow that you took. However, in some aspects, in some cases, there have been marriages where one person has grown and had different beliefs that is completely different than they did in the beginning of their marriage, and that could be detrimental to the marriage. Whether it's new religious beliefs, maybe it's new ideologies that they didn't have before, maybe they've come to a new point in life where they just want to wild out, and that doesn't align with the person that the other partner has. Maybe he's gotten some kind of drug abuse or some kind of violent tendency that they didn't have before. And if that is the case, you have grown apart and you're no longer aligned. And sometimes that gap can't be bridged.
Okay. But wouldn't you say that that's an understanding before you get married, that you guys are going to grow in different ways, and sometimes traumatic experience that you may endure during that marriage. It's almost like you sign up for that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So if you sign up for that, then would you still say it's okay to grow apart knowingly that you signed up for that in the beginning before taking the vows? Go ahead.
I was going to jump in here and say that, I think that in no relationship are the people who are in that relationship close at all times. You know what I'm saying? The relationships grow, they evolve, they're dynamic, they change. And so you can feel really close and connected to your partner in one moment, and then externally, internally, whatever the case may be, something impacts you all and you may grow apart. There may be a shift, a rift, whatever the case is. I think that is natural for couples to grow apart and come back together. It's almost kind of like a rubber band situation. I think that is natural. I think, and it's okay for that to happen. What I think is more important is when both people in the relationship are choosing to try to come back together. That is what to me is most important.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like it can't be one person in the relationship trying to tough it out because, they have made this vow, they have whatever the case may be, and the other person is just checked out. It takes two to tango. And so for me, I think what's most important about growing apart is that both people are making an effort to try to find their way back to each other and to try to choose each other again. If you don't have that, you can't ever actually really make amends or make that bridge back to one another. And that's when I think divorces and separations and things like that start to make more sense, because you have someone who's checked out. And I feel like at that point, when you're with a checked out partner, you can only endure so much. And I'm not saying, someone decided not to go to a counseling session, so you're divorcing. Obviously these things take time, but it can't be about the distance always. It's about the effort on both sides to find each other. I think that's what's most important about the relationship.
Completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I swear we're almost there to the main topic. I just want to get you guys' opinions while I have you on here, because I think it's good for people to be able to hear different perspectives from other folks. This word femininity, a feminine woman, what is your take on that? Is this something that you've been hearing year after year, or do you think people are just kind of starting to focus on this now? Is it something that you believe in? Is it something that you just think people are just, it's an overkill? What's your views and thoughts on it?
What's so funny is that when we talked about this initially, I was like, man, I wonder how I would define femininity, right? I was kind of struggling with that, leading into this discussion, because I think that initially I thought about that in a very traditional way, meaning a woman who's very girly, right? Or who has a very girly forward, or a woman forward type of presence, meaning she's wearing the skirt and the heels and all of that, you know what I'm saying? And she likes the frilliness and the pink and the, the very stereotypical things that like, and I don't identify with any of that. Like I hate pink. I prefer not to wear heels. You know what I'm saying? Like I'd rather have jeans on. There's all these things that like I feel like are stereotypical that comes with femininity that I just don't identify with. But if you ask my partner, he's like, you are very feminine, Sabrina. Right. And so it's so interesting that like some of the things that I think of are not what applies to me, but other people would still find me to be feminine. So I'm really struggling with that definition, JR, is what I'm trying to say, because I don't know I don't know where to take it in that sense.
All right. What about you, Dakia?
Yeah, like she said, I think it depends on what you're defining femininity as. Like she said, if it's girly, then I'm one of probably the girliest people that you'll meet. I'm obsessed with pink. I do ballet. There's always pink around me. I love a good rom-com and R&B ballad, preferably from the 99s and 2000s. I am the girly girl of them all. But at the same time, I love football. I wear black most days. Like I think that femininity is not just being girly, but I don't know. I think that it goes to that definition where people hear the word, oh, I want a feminine woman or this femininity. I think people hear those buzzwords, but they're not really all speaking the same language. They're not all talking about the same thing. So to say, what are your thoughts on femininity? It depends on what part of femininity are you talking about. Are you talking about, the way that I look and appear in my interest, or are you talking about the way that I behave with my husband? Are you talking about, that I want to just kind of be a passenger princess? Like, what are you talking about when it comes to femininity? There's so many aspects of being a woman, and that goes far beyond the way I dress, whether I'm in skirts and heels or whether I'm in sweats and sneaks. I think that being a woman is so multifaceted. Being feminine is multifaceted, and it can't be just, defined as the girly girl or the submissive chick or the, whatever. It's just so, it's so
Takia, now that you mentioned that, I feel like a part of femininity, sometimes the way that I hear femininity explained from a man's point of view is so much different than what women think. So we went immediately to the way that we're presenting, right? Like clothes and the things around us and like how our decoration. Sometimes I feel like when I hear men talk about that, I think they're talking about it almost from like a nurturing standpoint. Like how nurturing or supportive is she? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is she creating an environment where I feel like, she has my back and she wants my best interest? I think that there are some stereotypical ideas in there too. Like, does she cook and clean for me? Does she take care of the kids? Like, is she the primary caretaker of the kids? Like, I think that there's some of that in there too, which is fine if that's how they want to define it. I'm not the cook in my relationship either.
Yeah, your fiance throws down in the kitchen.
I don't have children, but I feel like I'd be a pretty primary caretaker. So there's things. I think like there's also behaviors, and then there's also and you did say this, Dakia, right? Like this idea of being passive, right? And I do think that is like a implicit value that is assigned to like femininity, and I think that there's a place for that, and then there's a place that that's not applied. So just depends. I don't know. JR, what are your thoughts on that?
I've been having a lot of discussions, and shout out to AP. He took the words right out of my mouth. Pause. But he says that it's a or. One of the things that a lot of men discuss on these panels is that a feminine woman is feminine with everything that she does. Like she doesn't turn it on or off. She's consistent in the way she speaks, the way she behaves, the way she moves. So it's not necessarily, well, it can be associated with dress as well. It's just all around. She's just a feminine woman. I've also heard the terminology of a divine feminine woman, which shout out to Sarah. She was up here and she kind of broke that down and she tied it back into the Bible and saying that if you don't have a relationship with God, then you're not considered a divine feminine woman. So there is various perspectives on what it is and what it looks like to each individual. But I think if I had to kind of narrow it down, I would just say just the aura. She's soft. She's not aggressive. She's not combative. So these are some of the things that's just being mentioned when we are having these discussions. So I don't know if that gives a little bit more context, or at least I'm trying to narrow it down for you so it's just not all over the place when we discuss it. One of the things that was brought up was there was a woman on the panel, and she said that sometimes women have to be in a masculine. There are certain situations where she has to be aggressive. So if a man was to come and walk up to you, and he tries to speak with you, you reject him. Should you still be soft in those moments, or is that a moment where you have to turn it up a little bit and be aggressive? What are you guys' views on that?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's a way of being firm and direct that is still feminine. I think there's a way of even being aggressive that is still feminine. I do feel like and so if we're saying that aggression and being combative is like a more masculine trait, if that's the way that it's being described here, I feel like for me, when I show up in the workplace, that's probably when I feel like I'm most masculine. I have to be most aggressive, vocal, very firm in those ways. I think when it comes to my relationship, I feel like I'm kind of almost the opposite. You know what I'm saying? Maybe because I am like that from 9 to 5, that like when I come home, I want to shut it down. So I don't want to have to be like, being so assertive all the time. That's just me personally. Other people may not feel like that. If I'm leading in the workplace, I don't necessarily want to have to be in that leadership position at home, but I will. I'll do it if I need to, but I think in the case of rejecting someone, I think that being firm, being direct, even like being borderline aggressive about it is appropriate if the situation calls for it. And I don't think that that should be necessarily seen as like a woman being too masculine or masculine. I think it's about a woman just ensuring her safety, So, and I do believe in self-defense for women. So there.
I think one of the things that came up as well is that if a woman remains feminine, even during those times, that you are likely to have a guy to come up for your defense. So, and I get it. There's levels to it, right? Because if you're going toe for toe, almost like you're a male, then you probably wouldn't have a lot of guys come to your defense. But what it sounds like you're saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you can put a little bit of basic, no, I'm okay, I'm married, no, I'm engaged. That's the level of aggression that you're speaking of, right? Being firm, but you're not being necessarily combative, but you're just setting a boundary. And
Well,
you're saying that it's okay to do that. You don't have to remain soft spoken in those instances.
right. I don't think you have to be soft spoken in those instances. I think that if someone is violating your personal space or if someone is giving you unwanted attention at that time, I think it is in your right and in your self-interest to let them know that I'm being cordial now, but we can take this to another level. And I do believe that women should be able to defend themselves physically if that person doesn't get the point. I don't think that a woman should necessarily rely on a third party man who she doesn't even know to come to her defense. That's just stupid. You have to be prepared to take care of yourself. I would love to say that another man is going to jump in when they see another man being inappropriate, but I've seen instances where that doesn't happen, to be honest with you. Do you know what I mean? I've seen instances of that happen where I think they kind of laugh about it. They're like, oh man, he's being stupid. He doing too much, blah, 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 blah. But there's no physical interference in that. And so that's why I was like, as a woman, you can't just rely on the men around you to help you. You have to be prepared to help yourself. And I think that that's still being feminine. It's just survival mode. You know what I mean? Like you have to survive. So that's my personal opinion.
Okay. All right, the kid. You want to add anything?
No, I mean, she pretty much summed it up. I think that there's this disconnect that says that femininity means passiveness or weakness. I think
Hopelessness.
or hopelessness. I'm not a damsel in distress. I think that as a woman, and femininity, womanhood, whatever you want to call it, I think it also means strength. I think that a feminine woman can be strong. I think that we don't want to discount the strength of a woman. The strength of a woman is what, brings life. It's what supports and is the backbone, and it's all these things. So to just discount that strength is doing a disservice to the totality of the woman.
Mhm.
All right, the reason why I brought that up because that was a situation I think I talked with you, Sabrina, about the twin teenage girls being stabbed. You guys familiar with that?
No.
Okay, so there were twin teenage girls stabbed, one fatally in New York after rejecting attackers' advances. So a pair of 19-year-old twin sisters were stabbed at Brooklyn early Sunday after rejecting their attackers' advances, with one of the teens killed in the assault and the other hospitalized in stable condition.
That's horrible.
According to the relatives, the attack came after the suspect tried to hit on two girls but was shot down. He walked in and started hitting on one of the girls. The girl's grandfather told the Post, she said, "I don't want to be bothered with you. Leave me alone." Then the store owner put him out. He started kicking on the door. He started banging on the door. Goodson said, "I don't know if they called the police, but at the same time, the store owner should have called." And then when the twins left the store, that's when he attacked them. He was waiting for them. He added, he took it the wrong way. He came after them. That was wrong. That was their wrong. I hope they catch this guy. So it just goes on the details as far as how she was harmed. But I guess her response at that time, and this is why this discussion is kind of important, because as a woman, how do you behave? Should you focus on exercising a certain level of femininity? There has been instances where I've heard women, married and all, will give the guy his number, and because some guys would just call right on the spot in order to make sure that the situation doesn't go left. Here you had this woman where she said, what did she say? What she say? She said, "I don't want to be bothered with you. Leave me alone." So to some, that may be a little bit aggressive because you really don't know who you're dealing with whenever you encounter with these men, with these teenagers. So I just want to get you guys' thoughts about that. Does that change the way, if you're ever in that situation, are you now kind of thinking about it a little bit differently?
So for me, I think that if we're being completely honest, this is not the first time it's happened, and unfortunately, it might not be the last time. It's a ridiculous, um, uh, unnecessary act that women should not have to deal with. But I remember years ago that happened down here in DC quite a few times. But at the same time, I don't think that, we keep using the word femininity, excuse me. I think this is just safety. I don't think that me being a feminine woman has anything to do with me trying to protect my safety. In these instances, I do give my number. I don't want to, ruffle too many feathers. I'll give a Google number. That's not necessarily my real number. I have seen times when the person will call the number on the spot to make sure that you didn't give them a fake number. I typically I'll try to say no. I'm married. Well, when I wasn't married, if I was in a relationship at the time, like, no, I'm so sorry, I'm spoken for. If I can get the sense of, oh no, this dude's a little psycho, a little crazy, then I will play along and say, okay, you know what, you're right. Let's see what happens, and then I'll give them the Google number. So just in case if he does call it, it's still going to go to my phone. But at the same time, I know I can turn that off and end up blocking the number, and he won't be able to get to me again. But again, I don't think that's about my femininity. I think that's about my safety.
I'm just like disgusted that even has to go that far, as like having to give out a fake number, having to make sure that it rings so that they know that it's a real number, having to block it later. I just feel like it's so unnecessary. And I feel like I do realize that there are people who are imbalanced, people who have issues out there, and there's always going to be a crazy scenarios, but it also makes me wonder about the ego behind some of this as well. Like, why do men feel entitled to have their number or access to that woman? Why do you feel like you are owed that? And why is a woman saying, no, I don't want nothing to do with you, justified for like stabbing someone? Like, that is extreme, it's ridiculous, it's disgusting, and I'm just like really floored that when you read that to me, JR, I was like, she didn't do anything wrong. She didn't curse him out. She didn't say you ain't shit. You look up. I didn't hear her saying anything about his appearance. She didn't say he looked broke. She didn't say nothing about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, all she says, I don't want nothing to do with you. Let me go. You know? And now that's disrespectful. So I feel like there has to be some like level of coaching or level of mentoring that's taking place to let people know that rejection is going to happen. And I know rejection is something that men take on more than women. Totally acknowledging that, right? Like, y'all got to shoot y'all shot and y'all gonna get rejected, right? Like, that's just the expectation a lot of times. But I still feel like there needs to be some mentoring and like discussions around, having thicker skin as a young man so that you're not driven to do that. Like, it almost makes me wonder, where was he embarrassed in front of his boys or in front of other men? Is that what took it so far? Because like, to me, it just doesn't add up. 1 + 1 isn't equal 2 in this situation that you just sent me. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's crazy and it's sick, but it's a reality. It's a reality, and it happens more often than you guys think. So I think us highlighting it and just living in reality that this can't happen, because we don't know what people are capable of these days. So the one thing, if I had to give some advice to my daughter, I wouldn't tell her to lean one way or another. What I would try to advise her to do is just understanding what's going on in that situation. Start looking at body language. Like, start looking at the amount of people that may be with him. Start looking at if you have an out, just because you just never know. So I want her to be able to make the best decision in that moment. So that's what I would be trying to coach her to be. But I think it is, I don't think that we should just ignore and act like it's just a one-off, because men can't handle rejection. And there are some people that slip through the systems. If I'm not mistaken, I think people might have controlled environments, but then once they turn adults, if they never did receive the help that they needed before leaving high school, then they're just out there. They're just out there. And then even if it was control, who's to say that they are being responsible when it comes to taking medication or that they are regulating their emotions? And I have seen it where chemicals do get imbalanced even a little bit more. And so whatever method or thing they have put in place as far as to keep them regulated, it's not working no more. So this is a reality, and I think it's important for women to understand, and it can happen. And so if you do find yourself in a situation like that, are you prepared enough to be able to make a decision, the best decision for you in that moment, with nobody being around? Are you on mute?
I think the advice that you gave to your daughter is smart. Like, look at the person. Do they seem off? Do they seem like they're on drugs? Like, look at their body language. Who are they with? Where are you? Where's the exit? Like, things like that, I think is really good to instill in a woman, like, as she's navigating these different things, just so that like she can, maybe it is to a point where, she has to act like, okay, I'll give you my number, and give that person a fake Google number just to make it safely, right? Or maybe it's one of those situations where she can kind of be like, nah, I'm good, and like duck into like a store or a restaurant or whatever, where she can just kind of like be there for a while, or whatever the case may be. So I think that's right.
All right. Let me go ahead and get into this main topic, which is trying to fix your partner in relationships and marriages is a recipe for failure. Trying to fix your partner in relationships and marriages is a recipe for failure. I'm going to play this clip, and I do want to get you guys' thoughts about it.
Only person that we can fix is ourselves.
Yes.
And so going back to, us as men taking accountability, it's very easy to point the finger and say, oh, well, it didn't work because of this, or that person did this. And all that may be true.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like, what's the accountability I'm going to take?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times both men and women get into relationships, especially, and they have that mentality. I'm gonna save this person. I'm gonna fix this person. Well, guess what? You in for a rude awakening.
And they just you're gonna get disappointed.
You're gonna get disappointed because nobody can fix anybody except ourselves.
Let's go ahead and get into it. Trying to fix your partner in relationship and marriages is a recipe for failure. Do you guys agree with what the gentleman was discussing there?
Yeah, I actually do agree with that. I think that, like he said, the only person that you can change is yourself. You can't force anybody to change. You can't make anybody change, unless they are willing and want to make that change. Then, as their partner, you can help and support them through that change. But if you're desiring them to change and it's something that they are not, then you can't force that on anybody. I'm a true believer when you're dating someone, in the dating process, that you can't fall in love with potential. You can't fall in love with the idea of, oh, he ain't quite right now, but it might get better, or he can be this thing that I want him to be, but he's not that right now, but I see the potential in it. And same thing, oh, she might not do this and this and this for me now, but I can see the potential she can get there. You can't fall in love with that. I think that there's always space and grace for people to grow and learn. But that learning has to be desired by both parties. You can't force that onto somebody.
I completely agree. I think it's about the willingness of the partner. Like, if this is something that they're like, hey, this is a goal I have, or I understand this is a character flaw, or I'm working on it and I need you to help hold me accountable because I understand that I need to change for me just as much as for you or our family. Absolutely. I think it's okay to put in work because that person has the self-awareness. And at that point, they're asking you to be like an accountability partner in that sense. So I think that if that's the case, it's okay to put in work to try to improve them. Because I do believe that your partner should be someone who can help make you better, right? Like, you have to want it for yourself, but I think it's okay for your partner to create that safe space, create that accountability, be that mirror.
Motivation.
Yeah, that motivation so that you do get better. I do believe that's an aspect of relationship that should exist. I will say, though, something that my grandmother told me that I think is applicable in this situation, and I always think about it, is the same thing you love about a person is the same thing you hate about them. Meaning that the things that you fell in love with that person about during the dating process, oh my God, they're so ambitious. Oh my God, they're so successful. They have so much money, whatever the case may be. I'm just throwing out examples of it. Oh, but you hate the fact that they're working so late. And you hate the fact that they're so, obsessed with their career and all these different things. You know what I mean? Like, that's just one example. But like, sometimes, the thing that you want to change is the other side of the coin of the things that you love about them. And so that's something you also have to like be like conscious of as their partner. Like, all the benefits that I get from this is something that I really love, but like, I don't like the sacrifices that goes with it. And so is it something that they really need to change? Or is it something that you need to kind of embrace and maybe ask them to have a better balance of? So that's something else I would throw out there.
Yeah, I think there are times where I think a lot of people had a representative, even in the dating stages. I think that even if they say that they're revealing everything they possibly can, there are situations that you guys as a married couple may find yourselves in that may show something that you couldn't really predict or you couldn't really speak on. So what if you are in a situation like that where the person just may not be willing to change, or they really can't see that it's an issue, and so you find you guys at a kind of like a back and forth, or like, I don't see anything wrong with it, then what do you do at that point?
For me, I think that, so I believe that if I love a person, it would be unloving of me to ask them to do something that they are unwilling or unable to do. If he is really unwilling and unable to do it, me forcing that on him is not showing love. Now, if it's something that is a very important need of mine, or something that's, a high token item, or, almost a deal breaker for me, I'm a firm believer in therapy, in counseling. Let's understand why it's something that you don't think that you can, or unwilling and unable to do. Let's dig into understand what is the issue that you have with this. And then take the steps from there. Like if it's something that you decide or you uncover that it's rooted from some trigger from your past and your childhood, then it maybe that's something that can be worked through. And then, like she said, as your partner, you can be that support, that accountability, and work through that. If it's just something that's a no-go, then that's a conversation and some, thoughts that you're going to have. Like, is this something that can't change? Is this something that I'm willing to, accept and just deal with? I think that those are conversations that you have to have.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Sabrina?
I mean, Dakia really hit the nail on the head there. I think it's about how much of a deal breaker is this thing that I want this person to change. Like, for instance, in my current relationship, I would love for him to like not leave his shit all over the floor. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I'm not gonna like leave the man because he continues to like leave his shit all over the floor. So it's just like, how big of a deal breaker is this situation? And I do think when you come to something that's like a really critical issue where you're feeling neglected, disrespected, disconnected, whatever the case may be, you know what I mean? In those scenarios, and that person isn't acknowledging of the issue, I think that that's when you seek external counsel. And so if that is your pastor, if that is a therapist, I do believe strongly in therapy too. Sometimes it's just the way it is. Your partner can hear something from somebody else that they just cannot hear. Even if you said it the exact same way, they cannot hear it from you because it's coming from you. You know what I mean? And I think that at that point, you kind of sometimes you just need someone else to deliver the message for you so that they can actually hear it. And so I think that's probably what I would aim to do. And if at that point it's not working out, then yeah, it's a point of like, that's when I have to realize, like, can I live with this? I'd have to make that call. Like, is this something I could really live with, or is it a deal breaker?
I want to get your guys' views about therapy. Do you think therapy is necessary? And would you be okay if your partner said that he don't think that he in particular needs therapy?
I think therapy is absolutely necessary. And I think it's mandatory, actually.
Same.
Mandatory. I just think it's good. I think it's good practice. It's good mental, emotional hygiene. Do you know what I'm saying? We have physical hygiene needs. I think mental and emotional hygiene is important, especially in a relationship. I think it should provide a safe space for both people to talk about things in a way that they probably couldn't. It should provide you tools and resources so that you can actually have conversations or work through issues. It's not a space for judgment. And so I think that if it's the right space, it could be very, very beneficial to a relationship. And I say it's mandatory because, I almost wish that I would have done more therapy in my first marriage. But we were so young. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't something that like we were necessarily like, when can we afford therapy? I think that would have been one of the issues. Like, can we even afford a therapist? But I think that it would have helped us kind of think through some of those challenges a little bit differently.
No, I completely agree. I think that mental health is just like physical health. Like you go to the doctor, you go to the dentist. There's preventative care for your physical health. There's preventative care for your mental health. There is, care that you need ongoing. I think that having that safe space is important. I think for far too long in the Black community, we were taught by, our great grandparents and stuff that, Black people don't go to therapy. That's a rich white person's thing.
That's crazy. You crazy.
Exactly. But I think that was such a disservice to our community. I think that especially in 2024 in the state of our community, I think that therapy is needed even more. We went through a whole pandemic. We went through a whole, racial divide in our country. Well, we've had an ongoing one, but it really kind of came to the forefront in 2020 through 2023. And I think that mental health and going to therapy is vital for relationships and just yourself, just your life. If you're going to take care of your knee, why wouldn't you take care of your brain?
So you guys said it's mandatory. So you don't think it's possible for somebody to process things without going to therapy?
You can absolutely process things. I can absolutely put a Band-Aid on my cut maybe I need stitches. I can absolutely, process things on my own. I could, whether if I had a third degree burn on my arm, I can absolutely kind of wrap it up by myself. But it would be so much easier, so much more effective if I went to a doctor, a professional that is trained and studied to help me process through that. I think that even through therapy, you still do a lot of processing on your own. I think that therapy is just there to give you a space that you can talk and you can receive tools to help you do that processing on your own after those therapy sessions. It's not this doctor's trying to get deep in my brain and analyze me. No, this doctor is trying to help you give you tools that you can help process that on your own. Like if you go to a physical therapist, if you injured your ankle, I know I broke my foot in ballet back when I was performing. I could absolutely just kind of toughed it out and kept going, but going to that physical therapist helped me heal quicker. It was a more efficient healing and I was able to get back on stage. If I'm going through something in my life, sometimes you don't even know you're going through some things. I could try to process it and do whatever my self-care needs are, whether it's, going to church, whether it's going to the beach, whether it's going to the spa, whatever your self-care needs are, you absolutely can do that. And I know that it will help. But I think that the efficiency that you can get from therapy far outweighs the let me fight through it on my own.
Yeah, I would add to that I think it relieves the burden that you put on your partner to be, that sounding board or that guiding advice. Like if I have a partner who's really going through a midlife crisis or going through some type of really emotional turmoil, I may not have the tools as much as I love that person, right? But I may not have the tools to help them navigate that. I may not have the tools to really necessarily receive that and be able to guide them. And so I think that, having a therapist or a counselor in your life relieves the burden of the two people having to figure it out for each other. There's a resource that you guys can go to help you guys sort through whatever issue it is. It may not even be related to your relationship. It could be something completely external. Someone passed away in the family, your finances, whatever the case may be. But like it relieves the burden of that partner having to be the expert, the professional for you. So that's another reason why I would love to. I'm a proponent of it.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Got a couple of things to add about that. I'm okay with being open for someone being open to doing it, but say that it's mandatory. I'm not really sure if I necessarily agree with that. I think there are some people that are self-aware, and I think you make a good point, meaning that things may come up, but at what point do you know if that person is healed or not? Like if you're not qualified, and I don't believe the person is necessarily saying that you're qualified, okay, you don't have to come see me anymore. Well, they may say, I think you're doing good because you're supposed to transition.
Yeah.
Not supposed to be with there. But my only thing is that how do you know as the person that's saying therapy is mandatory, how do you know if that person still needs it or not on the outside looking in? If that person say, I'm healed, I'm okay, like what are you, and I get some dead ass red flags, right? But if that person seems to be okay and he's saying he's not presenting any issues, do you still want him to go to therapy?
It's kind of like the way you have an annual checkup for physical health. You have your dental exam, things like that. That's how I look at therapy. It's not a matter of like, okay, time. It's not a jail sentence. Like, okay, we served our time. Now we got to go. You know what I'm saying? Like now I'm free. They're free at last. It's not that type of situation. I think it's just becomes a part of your routine and your lifestyle. And let's be clear, I'm not talking about you have to go to therapy once a week, twice a week, once a month. Like therapy can be something that you do quarterly. It can be something you do maybe twice a year. Like you can set the schedule that makes sense for your relationship. And with my experience in therapy, when I'm going through something or I've gone through something with my partner, it's much more frequent. We're doing it like weekly, every other week. I'm saying like, because it's such an intense time. And then there's been times when like I've kind of worked through those issues or life has just kind of moved on a little bit. And I had to tell my therapist like, yo, like, maybe we could just fall back a little bit, and she was like, I agree. I agree. Like we don't need to meet this often. And so I don't necessarily know if there's like a checkout time, like, okay, your shift is over. But I think that there is value in having some consistency there, and it could be very minimal. Like I said, like maybe once or twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, something like that. But I think it's important to have that check-in and to have that be a part of your lifestyle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the things I always want to highlight too is that just because they're qualified doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to get what you need from them.
Oh,
And,
mm-hmm.
and the reason why I say it is that just like you have to vet partners, you also got to be able to vet your therapist, and you got to know when they're just serving no value in that moment. I mean, typically, from what I see is that they do listen to you because they have to get an idea. So even when those first 2 or 3 sessions, it may just be more listening and you're not getting the tools that you need. But there are some therapists, just like teachers, that don't take their job seriously. They're just there doing the same routine. They can really care less to give the same advice, and they're not really valuing and hearing what it is. So that's the reason why I say you got to be able to listen to what your partner is saying, or even if they are in therapy, just be mindful that it just may not be it for them, and so they try to find somebody. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Sabrina.
I was like, and there's different schools of thought when it comes to therapy. And so, you may encounter a therapist who their practice or their orientation just doesn't work for you. You know what I mean? And that's something that, like you said, you have to vet them, but it takes time to kind of get there, right? Like sometimes you have to do a few tests when you go to the doctor before they can really diagnose you. So you have to give them time to actually diagnose and be able to read you. But at that time, you're also supposed to read them and be like, are you really hearing me? Are you really saying this back to me in the way that I'm talking about? So I do agree that it's a vetting, but it takes time to do that. I also believe that there are therapists that, like, sometimes you come to the end of your rope with them, meaning that they don't have they may be at the end of their toolbox with you, right? And I know that sounds kind of crazy, like, dang, am I that problematic where you gotta have all these different tools? But sometimes you do. You know what I'm saying? Just like a teacher, she got to figure out another lesson plan to kind of get through to you. And if she's not creative enough or doesn't have enough in like her, in her toolbox to do that, she's not going to get through to those students. I feel the same way about therapy. Like sometimes there are therapists where you just kind of get to your end of your rope with them. And that may mean you need to have someone else who has a different set of skills and a different types of toolbox that can help you. So there's also some of that in there too, where it's about you vetting them, but it's also about like, hey, I've come to the end of my rope with this person. It was good while it lasted. She helped me through some things, but I'm evolving and I have new issues, and that person is not helpful anymore.
And even to add to that, not even just that they're at their end of the rope of their toolbox of tools or whatever. Sometimes you just have to kind of date around a little bit on your therapist too, to kind of figure out who is the therapist for me. I don't think that every therapist can serve every person. I think that you kind of need to find your person. I've gone to several doctors, like primary care physicians. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to come back to this doctor. I might want to try a different doctor out. I might want to get a second opinion. Same thing goes with your therapist. I've had a couple different therapists, and some of like, all right, I don't know if I'm really vibing with this person. I'm not sure if this is the space for me. And you try something else. You try another one. I don't think that you have to, be stuck in one. And we're not saying that, like you said, every teacher doesn't teach well. Every teacher doesn't teach or take their job seriously. Every doctor, anybody. You can say that about any profession, any occurrence, any situation. I think that's when it comes down to vetting them and figuring out the person for you, the therapist for you, and the process for you.
Mm-hmm.
Again, live and let live. Figure out what works for you.
All right. I like that. I know we're coming to a near, but before we get off, I just wanted to see if you guys want to give some relationship advice, maybe a gem that you might have learned along the way, just to kind of close it out.
I'm not an expert in relationships.
Yeah, I was like,
well, not an expert.
I don't do advice. I do, I know things that work for me and what doesn't work for me. And I don't want to say that, oh, do this, and this, and you'll be happy in your relationship or your marriage or your dating, situation. I just believe in trusting your gut, keeping your eyes open, being vulnerable and open to love. Yeah, your instincts don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, it's something that you've learned, Sabrina, not necessarily from an
Oh, mine wasn't gonna be that like deep and like intuitive. That was so good, Takia. I was like, have lots of sex. You know, I was like, make sure you have lots of sex, as a physical connection. No, I was just gonna say, and fight fair. I think that that's a huge one for me too, in terms of maintaining your relationship. So I think that treating each other with care, even when you're not getting along, is incredibly important. So that's another one. Like, don't try to tear that person down when you're upset with them and then expect that things are going to be able to bounce back. So I think fighting fair is another one, or fighting with care is another one that I would say. And as much as I hate it, because sometimes I just want to shut down, give the silent treatment, always communicate. Like, always make sure that you're communicating. And I know it's hard because sometimes you feel like you're talking in circles, but I think communication is important because it's the only way that you're really going to find that compromise, that middle ground, that agreement, that resolution. So those are the things that I would say.
If I had to give one thing, it would probably be the foundation is important. So if the foundation is intact, then it will eliminate a lot of issues that may come. You know, that's where the safety comes in, that for a woman, if that foundation is laid properly. All right, tell the people where they can find you at.
Absolutely. Well, you can find us at the Keep It Cute Show. It's the Keep It Cute Show on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of that. And then I'm Sabrina.Topacio on IG.
And I am Mrs. Dakia on IG and all other platforms. And yeah, tune in Thursday nights at 8 to the Keep It Cute Show.
JR, thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming, man. Thanks for blessing the platform. And make sure you guys go ahead and follow them. Let me also just highlight a couple super chats that came to AP Accountability Partner, $10 says, really dope conversation. JR, respect, sir. And AP Accountability Partner again, $2 says, thank you, JR. And thank you, ladies, for being open.
Oh,
all right, y'all. We have to head over to the main show. So make sure you guys go ahead and click that link. It should direct you right over there. And I'll see you on the other side. Thank you again, ladies. Y'all be blessed.
thank you.